Hey guys, you're listening to the Prosta English podcast, and I'm your host, Nika. In our summer speaking camp, my lovely students and I continue discussing different interesting topics. And this week, our topic was kindness. We try to understand whether people are born with this character trait or learn it from their parents, whether it's easy or difficult to be kind, and whether kindness requires money or not. Our discussion helped me remember some situations from my own life when I met kind hearted people. They did small acts of kindness, but those simple actions lifted my mood and made my day better. And today, I want to share these stories with you. This winter, I had my first car accident. Don't worry, it was a small one, but it was still very unpleasant and stressful. It happened a few days before Christmas. The roads were full of cars. People were rushing to buy last minute presents, and many of them also wanted to visit the Christmas market because it was the last day it was open. After about 30 minutes of driving through the busy city, I finally reached a familiar parking lot. I had been there hundreds of times and I felt that I could finally relax. But apparently, I relaxed too early. Somehow, I didn't notice a huge concrete pillar when I was turning. I have no idea how it happened. Maybe I wanted to change the song and got distracted by my phone, or maybe I was just daydreaming. Honestly, I have no clue. But the sound was unbelievable. I immediately got out of the car because I didn't understand what had happened. Then I saw that I had hit the right headlight really hard. My hands started shaking and I started crying my eyes out. I couldn't even get back into the car because I was in shock. Two guys who had been driving behind me immediately came over and offered to help. They helped me pick up the broken pieces that had fallen off the car and then parked my car in a safe place. After that, they helped me clean up all the small pieces of plastic that were scattered everywhere. I know it wasn't difficult for them. It took only 5 or 10 minutes of their time, and it didn't cost them anything. But for me, their help was priceless. When they left, I started again crying even harder. I literally burst into tears, and then an elderly man came up to me. He said that he had seen the accident from a distance and wanted to make sure I was okay and that I hadn't hurt myself. He started calming me down, saying that the car could easily be repaired and that it wasn't worth crying over. To be honest, he could have just walked past me, but I was deeply touched by his care and compassion. At that moment, I realized how important it is not to be left alone in situations like this. The next situation happened last weekend in Gdańsk. My husband and I were walking around the city center when it suddenly started raining. A few minutes later, we decided to take shelter under the roof of a cafe. Yeah, we had umbrellas, but the rain was so heavy that we decided to wait there for a while. A moment later, two women with 5 or 6 children stopped next to us. They didn't have any umbrellas at all. And without a second thought, my husband offered them our umbrellas. Yeah, our car was quite close, and we could easily get there without the umbrellas. But I still believe that not everyone would even think of doing something like that. They were surprised when he offered them the umbrellas, but they gratefully accepted them and continued on their way. To be honest, at that moment, I looked at my husband and fell in love with him all over again. During one of our speaking classes, we discussed the question of whether we are born kind or whether we learn kindness in childhood. And while we were talking about it, I shared the example of my husband. Honestly, I know many kind people, but most of them will think twice before helping strangers, and there are different reasons for that. For example, when people on the street ask for money or beg for money, many of us do not believe that they are really poor or in need. We think that maybe they are alcoholics who will spend the money on a bottle of vodka. Or we think that they might be collecting money for some fake organizations that later take all the donations. To be honest, when I see a person with two arms and two legs asking for cash, I usually don't give them any money. I often think that they could find a job instead of sitting on the street. But my husband reacts differently. When someone asks him for money, he might ask, "Is it for food?" And if the person says yes, he goes to the shop with them and buys them something to eat. I think that's a very kind thing to do. Another situation where people are often unwilling to help is when someone is collecting money for sick children on the street. Many of us assume that the collectors will keep the money for themselves or that the children do not even exist. Instead of simply walking past, my husband asks for the organization's official website or for some information that he can check. After making sure everything is real, he might donate money online. Sometimes people are simply too busy to help others. They are on their way to work, taking care of their families, or thinking about their own responsibilities. They tell themselves, there are plenty of people around, someone else will help. And very often, that someone else is my husband. Paul is always willing to stop and give someone a hand. If he doesn't know how to do something, he will stay with the person and look for the answer online. Yes, it takes some of his time, but in return, it gives him a lot of satisfaction and the feeling that he has made someone's day a little better. So I guess he was simply born with this character trait and with a strong desire to help other people. Another time when a stranger was kind to me happened a few years ago in Belgium. I went there to visit my friend who was living in Brussels at the time. I took a flight with a cheap airline, so the airport was about 50 kilometers away from the city. I was supposed to take an airport shuttle, but our flight was delayed. By the time we landed, there were no more shuttles. I could have taken a taxi or spent the whole night at the airport and gone to my friend's place the next morning. But at that moment, I was young, brave, and confident enough to walk up to an elderly man from my flight and ask if by any chance he was going to Brussels. He looked at this small, skinny girl and said, "I'm not going to Brussels. I'm going somewhere nearby, but I will definitely give you a lift." I remember that I was a bit confused by the expression give you a lift because I had never heard it before. And it's a common expression in British English. But I quickly realized that he meant I was willing to give you a ride, and he drove me all the way to my friend's home. During the journey, I told him about Belarus, our culture, and our traditions. And in return, he told me about his life in the UK. You cannot imagine how thankful I was to that man. At that time, I didn't have the mobile internet, so I couldn't even text my friend. Thanks to his kindness, I saved about 150 euros, and most importantly, I got to my friend's place safe and sound. Speaking about myself, my life motto is treat others the way you want to be treated. I think it's such a simple rule. If you want people to be honest with you, be honest. If you want them to be loyal, be loyal. If you want people to be kind to you, be kind to them. For example, when I was living in Lithuania, many people asked me, how do Lithuanians treat you? Are they polite? Are they friendly? There is a stereotype that if you speak Russian in Lithuania, local people will treat you badly. But that wasn't my experience at all. I didn't have to learn Lithuanian because I was studying in English. Most adults in Vilnius speak Russian, and many young people speak English. But I still wanted to learn Lithuanian because I wanted to understand the local culture better and simply understand what people around me were saying. But even when I had just started learning the language and only knew a couple of words, I always tried to greet people in Lithuanian. Then I would apologize for not speaking the language well and ask if they could switch to Russian or English. And you know what? During the 5 years I lived there, I never met anyone who wasn't willing to talk to me. I respected their culture and I always approached people with a smile. In return, they treated me with kindness and respect. The same is true for Poland. Some people say that they have met unfriendly or aggressive people here who do not like foreigners. And yeah, I believe that it can happen. There are different kinds of people everywhere, and some of them are not tolerant of foreigners. But personally, I have never had this experience. Every time I speak Polish, of course, people immediately understand that I'm not a native speaker. But if I don't know a word, they always try to help me finish my sentence. Or if I make a mistake, they kindly correct me. That's why my experience of living both in Lithuania and in Poland has been truly positive. Kind actions cost almost nothing, but they can mean a lot. Ladies, do you know that feeling when a man holds the door open for you in a public place? Personally, it always makes me feel appreciated and respected. And what's interesting is that I think the guy feels good too because he has done something simple that made another person's day a little better. Or compliments. Oh my God, I absolutely love them. I picked up this habit in the United States. People there often compliment complete strangers just because they like their hairstyle, their outfit, or even their phone case. I saw how much joy it brought to both people, and I decided to be a little braver and start giving genuine compliments too. Unfortunately, I still do not do it very often in Poland. I'm kinda afraid of creating an awkward situation if people do not understand what I'm saying or if I do not say it correctly. And also, I have to speak quickly, and people do not expect compliments from strangers, so sometimes they might not understand my accent the right way. But whenever I go to Belarus, I always compliment beautiful women. Again, many people say that Belarusians are reserved and not very friendly, but whenever I compliment a woman, she always smiles every single time. So give it a try, guys. Compliments cost nothing, but to give them, you need to keep your eyes open your heart, and be ready to notice beauty in other people. One more example of a kind act is when you send me a short message after listening to my podcast. I always smile when I receive your messages, guys, and I keep thinking about it for the rest of the day. Trust me, for content creators, it's incredibly important. Your support inspires us. It reminds us that we are investing our time and energy in something valuable and meaningful for other people. And I'm not talking about myself. If you follow any bloggers, YouTubers, or other creators whose content you enjoy, take 2 minutes and leave them a kind comment. It can make their day better and also help more people discover their content. The same goes for cafes and restaurants. If you enjoy the food or the service, leave a positive review online. That way, more people will discover those wonderful places. Another kind act that costs us nothing is being patient with other people. If a waiter, for example, makes a mistake, the driver in front of you doesn't move as soon as the traffic light turns green, or the person in front of you in a queue is taking a long time, choose patience instead of anger and frustration. We never know what the people around us are going through. Maybe they have small children and they haven't been sleeping well for months. Maybe they are worried about their parents' health. Or maybe they simply do not feel well themselves. Our impatience and anger will only make them feel worse. And as the result, we will become more stressed too. You know, the beautiful thing about kindness is that it spreads. When someone feels seen, appreciated, and cared for, they are much more likely to pass that feeling on to someone else. It's like a chain reaction that starts with one small decision. Yeah, the world can feel overwhelming sometimes, and we can't solve every problem, but we can all choose how to treat people we meet every day. And I truly believe that these little moments of kindness make our lives and our communities a little warmer, one person at a time. I have a little surprise for you guys. I asked our students to record short voice messages in which they share stories about kindness from their own lives. Let's listen to them together. I hope their stories inspire you to open your eyes, look around, and be a little more open hearted toward the people around you.
Hey everyone, I would like to share a memorable story from my life with you. A few years ago, I was traveling around India with my daughter. We stopped at a cafe and she was holding a balloon. She was only 2 years old and she was having so much fun playing with it until it suddenly popped. It was a real tragedy. Everyone in the cafe knew what had happened because she started crying so loudly. While I was trying to comfort her, one of the waiters quietly ran out and bought her a new balloon. You can't imagine how happy she was. I never expected such a kind gesture. That memory still warms my heart because someone took the time to notice my little princess and wanted to make her smile. Thank you.
Hi, so this is my story how I shared the kindness. I have a remote job, so I am not often go outside to meet another people and give them my kindness. But 2 weeks ago, I went to our family country house and I used a train to reach the destination. And you need to go down the stairs and go under the ground if you want to leave the train station. And there was a old lady with a quite huge bag and I offered to take her back and down it the stairs. She was really glad that I helped her. But I hope someone helped her to bring the bag up the next stairs. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
This year, I was on holiday in Vietnam, and on the last night of our trip, around 3 a.m., we ordered a taxi to the airport. And accidentally, I chose the cash payment option, but I only had a bank card. I did not have cash. I realized my mistake after the driver had already accepted the ride. I hoped I could change the payment method in the app, as we can do in Russian taxi apps, but it was not possible in Vietnamese app. And I felt very nervous and embarrassed, so I explained the situation to the driver. And it was 3 a.m. and we did not have opportunity to get cash. There was nowhere to withdraw cash. And the driver thought about it during the whole trip. And in the ending of the trip, it was super shocked for us. He told us that the ride was free, and we were really surprised by his kindness, and we'll never forget his generosity. It was super shocked.
Whenever I travel to another country, I always send postcard to my family and friends. It's a small gift, but it means a lot to them. I love getting message from them when the postcard arrive. They often tell me it made them smile and that they keep the postcard as souvenirs. My cousin keeps all the postcards I send her on fridge. Every time she sees them, they inspire, and she feels like a small part of her has traveled to those places too. Now our friends send us postcards too when they travel. Even a small postcard can make someone's day better. That's why I always try to do small kind things for people I care about.
I can tell you a story from my trip. My sister and I arrived in Valencia in Spain. We were tired after the flight. My sister was in Spain for the first time and didn't speak any Spanish. We were worried about getting to the hotel and decided to take the bus. It was evening, quite late. To ease my anxiety, I asked the driver to tell me when the stop was. He was listening to the European Football Championship commentary on the radio and was probably very engrossed. We drove for a long time through the dark city, waiting. We saw on the map that we had already gone past the hotel and hadn't gotten off on time. Everyone got off at the last stop, and the driver announced, "The bus is not going any further. This is the last trip." The driver looked at my sad and confused face and said, "Oh, I forgot. Okay, I'll turn down the lights since the bus is no longer running on schedule, and I'll take you to a stop. Don't worry." He wasn't obligated to help us at all, as it's not his job to remind tourists about stops, but I was very happy and grateful. After all, I really didn't want to walk around the city at night with my luggage. I often remember the driver.
Thank you so much, guys, for spending this time with me today. Maybe you've noticed that I always say these words at the end of every episode. And I want you to know that I really mean them. And if this summer you want to improve not only your listening skills, but also your speaking skills, I would love to invite you to the final months of our summer speaking camp. After that, we will close the camp until next summer. So don't miss the chance to become more confident speaking English while discussing interesting and heartwarming topics with other learners. I can't wait to meet you there. See you at the camp and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.